So we won't be much longer yet this morning, but I think it would be appropriate to bring the morning humor. And I found a story about this distraught businessman, and he called his financial advisor, and there's this panic in his voice. He says, "Is it true? Is it true? Is my money really all gone?" And his advisor tries to, calm with a calm voice. He says, "No, calm down. It's all right. It's not all gone. It's just with somebody else right now." That should help. No problem. All right. Well, I want to begin a new series this week, and today I just want to give you a kind of a run into this, and we'll start unpacking more next week. It's called Oikonomics, which is an odd word for you, I'm sure. It's a bit of a Greek word with some, English transliteration stuff kind of shoved in there. But to prep that, or before we really get into anything else, I have a theme verse for this series I would like us to consider. John 12:46. John 12:46 says, "I have come into the world as light, so that whoever believes in me may not remain in darkness." That's Jesus' words to us, to the whole world, really, saying that I have come into the world as light, so that whoever believes in me may not remain in darkness. That when we put our faith into Jesus Christ, we come into his light. In fact, the Bible describes heaven as not need. There's no need of light, because the Lord is light and illuminates the entire place. I've not come into this world as light, or I have come into so that whoever believes in me may not remain in darkness. And I thought it'd be good for us to maybe kind of try to embed this in our thoughts and even into our soul throughout this series. So would you say it with me one time? John 12:46, "I have come into the world as light, so that whoever believes in me may not remain in darkness." What a glorious truth and promise. Have you ever known darkness in your life? Have you ever known any darkness? The darkness of maybe a depression, or darkness of discouragement, the darkness of maybe confusion, or even anger, darkness of pain in your life from how you've been treated or things that have happened to you, or even a sense of being lost because life just sometimes seems out of control. Have you ever felt darkness in your life because maybe a sin had a grip on your life, and in the flesh, you just saw no way out. You saw no recovery. You saw no way of shaking this off. You just knew it was eating away at your soul, and it was taking away your life, and it was ruining everything. There's all kinds of chaos. Have you ever felt that there's darkness in the world, and it just has felt heavy and overwhelming, and there's like nothing we can do about this? It just seems to keep coming, and in wave after wave, it just crashes upon our life, and there's a darkness out there. And what do? William Barclay was writing about this darkness and how it's the opposite of the Christian life, and he says this: darkness stands for the Christ-less life. Darkness is hostile to the light. Darkness stands for the ignorance of light apart from Christ. Darkness stands for the chaos of life without God. Darkness stands for the immorality of the Christless life. Darkness is characteristically unfruitful. It bears no fruit. Darkness is connected with lovelessness and hate. And darkness is the abode of the enemies of Christ and the final goal of all those who will not accept him. Darkness. But we, because of Jesus Christ, can step into the light. And in the light, we can have hope. And in the light, we can have healing. And in the light, we can find power. And in the light, we can find faith and trust. And I just wonder if you've ever experienced any darkness in your life. And if you sense that maybe light might set you free. We've certainly heard of that this morning already. Definitely, Carol, your story, and as you brought scripture and you talked about the power of God in your life. And how even being a part of a community has even brought that. Is anybody here this morning because somebody either shared with you the gospel of Jesus Christ or invited you to church at some point in your life? Anybody here this morning because somebody just told you about Jesus or invited you to church? I can't imagine anybody has walked into this room because somebody didn't first invite them. Or somebody didn't first tell you a story. I mean, every once in a while, somebody will move into the area, they're looking for a church, and they'll kind of just check us out. Every once in a while, somebody's maybe even in trouble, and they're wondering if the church might have some help for them, and they'll kind of stumble through the doors. But even with that, at some point in their life, somewhere in their past, someone has been there and invested in them and said, you got to check out Jesus Christ. Because the darkness that you have in your life can be brought into the light. That's what Oikonomics is really going to be about. It's about sharing the light of Jesus Christ. And we're going to talk about some ways and some steps, some things that we can do. And we're going to share some things that, some ways that actually will be in fact, let's jump ahead to this. Grace, you can find these for me. When we think about evangelism, we think about sharing Jesus Christ. When we think about, making an impact in the world, we probably have kind of these kinds of images. Where the first one was Billy Graham. You got Billy Graham up there, Billy Graham has preached Jesus to more than 251 million people. When you think or hear the word evangelism, maybe you think of people like this, the street corner preachers, confronting people about sins, messages, maybe stand on a bike. I think this guy's holding a sign, Jesus is coming, are you ready? When you think of the word evangelism, maybe you think about this, compassion ministries, getting out into people's lives and feeding and talking to and providing clothes. Or what about this guy? This guy, Arthur Blessed. He's carried across over 42,788 miles, covering 324 countries over the last 51 years of his life. And he is still going. He's still alive and he's still going. When we think of evangelism, that's probably the kinds of things that come to mind. We're going to take a different look at evangelism. We're going to take a different look at what it means to share the light. That's what God's appointed them to do. The question is, what has God appointed you to do? How can you bring the light into this world? How can you share that light in some way? And we're going to look at some really simple things. But essentially, I'll give you just the brief, this is a really brief version. Oikonomics looks at the 5 capitals of your life. Resources that God has trusted you with to use for his kingdom. There's 5 things he's given you that you can use to make a difference in the world. And he asks you to be a good steward. Oikonomics really is the word stewardship in the Old Testament, or in the Bible. The word stewardship is in the original, it's kind of this word oikonomics. We'll unpack it more maybe next week. But it's about stewardship and life management, and how can I use what God has already given me to bring light into the world around me. Now, one more time this verse, John 12:46. I have come into the world as light, so that whoever believes in me may not remain in darkness. Every year we do a 40-day journey between, what would have been last Wednesday to the start up until Easter. A 40-day journey. So this is a 40-day journey of Oikonomics. And I'd ask you just to consider, during this next 40 days, is there something you could do to draw closer to the Lord and to make a new impact in the world around you? Is there something you could do to love God more and then love people more as well? Just one thing. Just find one thing. You don't have to be a Billy Graham to be an evangelist. You don't have to be an Arthur Blessed and walk all over the world. You have to find out what God has put in your life. Where is your family member? Where is your friend? Where is your neighbor? Where is somebody that God has brought into your life that you could start making investments in them of light? How can you love God more these next 40 days, and how could you love somebody around you? I'd like you to put some thought into that this next week. What would that look like? Could your devotional strategy use a freshening up? Is there something you could do to kind of take that, go to the next level, take that next step and bringing new life to that time spent with the Lord? Maybe you want to pick a song that is on the radio right now and you just want, you listen to it every day. You could do just a simple step to do something to start working towards the Lord. Maybe you want to spend more time in the Word. Maybe you want to change your prayer time around. Grace and I have been talking a little bit about this saturate idea. I'm just reading Romans chapter 8 every day. But whatever for you, what's one thing you could do to just lean into the Lord this next 40-day season? And then what is one thing you could do to impact the world for Jesus Christ? Maybe say, I'm going to buy a cup of coffee every week for somebody. And just say, just to bless them. Maybe you know somebody's hurting right now, and you're going to say, I'm going to make sure to reach out to them every week and be there. Just to let them know I'm thinking about them, I love them, and I'm praying for their situation. Maybe there's some other thing that comes to mind. You need to just take this question's wide open. What could you do to be a blessing to one person in one way? And we'll talk about some more specifics as we go on.